Hello everyone, this is Michelle and I'm here to do an April 2020 interactive astrology reading for you. This is an interactive reading because as I interpret the various aspects in April, you can apply those aspects to your own natal chart. If you don't have your natal chart handy, you will probably know where this is happening in your life anyway, because this is a general reading for all signs. However, you can pinpoint some things and get messages by pulling out your own natal chart and focusing on the signs. So in other words, if I am interpreting the sun in Aries as a general interpretation, you can look for Aries in your natal chart. This is an Aries wheel. You can see Aries is on the house of the first cusp, but Aries is not necessarily in your first house. It could be anywhere around the wheel. There are many good chart generators that you can pull up a chart with and all over the internet. So you can either listen through the first time and then perhaps even a second time come back with a natal chart. That might be another way to look at it. All right, one other thing I want to explain is that the inner wheel is April 1st and the outer wheel right now is also April 1st. However, I will move the planets around on the outer wheel throughout the month, and we will probably jump back and forth a little bit as we go through the month. The thing that I want to start with though is Venus. Venus at 27 degrees of Taurus, and then very shortly ingress to Gemini. So Venus will be in Gemini for most of the month up to about 18 degrees at the end of the month. It is really the theme, I would say, for the entire month. Also, Venus is, if we look on this Aries chart, the lead planet. Venus is leading the way. And so what I am seeing from that is a message that says we need to communicate love to one another. Gemini representing communication, Venus, love. So it won't be enough to just feel it. Of course we are going to feel it, but it will be a time to reach out and communicate to others that we care about them. And of course this is so important when many of us are leading lives in isolation due to the coronavirus. Now the second thing that we want to look at, this is really an overview, the first three aspects I'm going to talk about, or yes, okay, so the next thing we want to look at is the full moon. The full moon at 18 degrees of Libra. This is the glyph for the moon. It doesn't look full, but it is by the 18th. And of course we know Libra represents partnership and cooperation. Now we get the full moon because it is opposing the sun at 18 degrees of Aries. And so there's a polar opposite concept going on here with Aries that has more to do with me and mine and myself as an individual. Libra, of course, more about partnership. And so I see this full moon as saying that we really need to work together in order to complete what needs to be done. This is a group effort here, we should say, in order to get things done. Let's go ahead now to the 23rd. On the 23rd of April, we have the new moon at 3 degrees of Taurus, and we get the new moon because it is conjunct the sun. We also see that this conjunction involves Uranus at 6 degrees, and I feel that that is important. Our perspective on life can drastically change. throughout the month, and particularly towards the end of the month of April, we can begin thinking in new ways about what's important in life. There can be a very dramatic shift in what we see as valuable. For example, the value of money, represented by Taurus, versus love, also represented by Taurus. It could be the value of possessions versus health. And so there's a way in which we can really start looking at things in a brand new way based on everything that's occurring in the month of April. Now let's go ahead and jump back to the first. We're going to get into the details now. And I should say that if you want to take this a little bit more slowly, you can go to the website oldworldmystics.com and go to the astrology page, and you will see this all in a written report, and so you can take your time with it a little bit more if it feels like we're kind of rushing through it. I want to take a look now at Venus again. Let's take a look. Venus, so important in this month's chart. All right, so here we have Venus in Taurus in rulership, trining Pluto and Jupiter in Capricorn. We can see right here. This is an Earth trine. The computer program is also showing us that there's a trine with Saturn and Mars, but this would be out of sign because this is Aquarius. So we'll stick with focusing on Venus trine Jupiter and Pluto. Jupiter represents the higher mind. This is the higher mind. And it is saying very simply that the way out is through loving one another. This is where the energy will flow more easily. Only through caring and considering others are we going to get through these difficulties. This is going to come up into stark contrast with other aspects later in the month, so it's worth remembering. It's the core message of April. Last month I mentioned that there would be a silver lining at the end of March, and I wondered, now what would that be? But I can see it now. It is also here showing very clearly with this Venus-Jupiter trine. Some of us are going to have actually a very rare opportunity to spend more time at home, and it can be actually a very restful and peaceful time for some. That's not to say that there aren't many concerns, of course, for most of us, but if you are in a position where you can take advantage of a little time out or time off, if possible, it certainly makes sense to do so, especially when so many of us are undergoing so much stress at this time. So that's certainly okay to do. Let me say the chart is saying take advantage of that time. Let's go ahead now to April 4th, and let's get back to looking at Venus again. Oh my goodness. Venus is just all over. Venus is spearheading this chart. Let me tell you. Now we have Venus at 0 degrees of Gemini. So where is Gemini in your chart? And we are going to be looking at an air trine. Gemini and Aquarius. We can see this perfect trine with Saturn at 0 degrees and also Mars involved with this conjunction, Mars at 2 degrees of Aquarius. So this idea of loving one another, it starts out more perhaps with family and more in a close, let's say, range of people, a closer range of people, but it quickly branches out. It spreads out to not just our personal sphere, but really the whole world, we are going to begin to see this. We are seeing it even now. Again, it's not enough to just feel it. It needs to be communicated, even if we find that doing so is somewhat difficult or involves some sacrifice, which we can see with Saturn here. This can be something, for example, as simple as, let us say you go to the supermarket and you give up your place in line for an elderly person that you do not know. In this way, you are making a bit of a sacrifice because you probably want to get out of there uh, pretty quickly yourself as well. But by doing so, you are helping the community at large and the specific person that probably, perhaps, let's say for some, in some situations, needs to get out even before you do. We're also seeing this with people that are delivering food to the elderly, people that are shut-ins, let's say. Another place where we can see this, for example, in terms of all of humanity, is with donations and fundraisers and that sort of thing. It's a way to communicate that we care about others. So we will, I think, see an uptick in this in the beginning of April. We have the exact conjunction on the 4th. We see people making sacrifices in order to show that they care about others. Now, we're going to move to the 14th. We're going to jump ahead and we're going to take a look at this really stark contrast to all of the messages of Venus and love. And we want to take a look now at the sun. So let's bring up the sun aspects here. All right. The sun is at 24 degrees of Aries. This is where we started at 11 degrees of Aries, and now we are moving up about 2 weeks into the month, and now we are at 24 degrees, and we see this cardinal square. You see it right here between Aries and Capricorn. Where is Aries and Capricorn in your natal chart? Because although this will be a general interpretation, you might discover some specific messages for yourself about how this pertains to you. Let's just think about Aries first, just in general. Aries is about the individual. Aries is also about thinking just about the concept of me and the concept of mine and what I deserve. Uh, Aries is about being more self-assertive and interested in the self. Now, don't mean that in a particularly bad way. I'm not saying that, but we are looking at a square here. And of course, there are other things that Aries represents, for example, bravery, courage, pioneering spirit, discovery, and all of those wonderful things. But overall, in general, Aries is more like the child, we would say, more like the child, very aware of self and self needs. So let's just keep that in mind. And the other thing is Aries is quite impulsive, can be very impulsive, Mars ruled. Let's take a look at Capricorn now. Capricorn in general, we could say represents wanting to get ahead and wanting to prosper, which can also be very positive. But we do have Pluto involved. Pluto, a planet that signifies power and control, and we are looking at a square. So these concepts are really in stark, I should say, opposition to the concept that we were thinking about with Venus and love and communicating that love. What we are seeing here is that some people will be seeing opportunities, to enrich themselves and gain power and control by taking what they believe they deserve over others. Where is this perhaps going to happen in your life in particular? Where is Aries in the chart? Where is Capricorn in the chart? You can find yourself on either side of the equation here. So, for example, let us say that you are not looking for power and control over others, or taking something that perhaps somebody else needs more than you do. But if somebody else does that, then it can impact you, if that makes sense. So we can find ourselves on either side. It's also possible at times that we will be tempted. We can be tempted to think this is something that I deserve, this is something that I want, and I have to take care of myself and think about myself right now. This is really suggesting a feeling or a sense of survival and needing to do what's necessary to to get ahead, let's say. All right, so we're going to move now. I know that these are tough aspects, and this is really it's a difficult reading, but these are unprecedented historical times, and this is the story that is coming through to me. We're going to take a look now at the sun again. Let's move to the 21st. Let's take a look at that sun again. All right. 21st of April, we have the sun at 1 degree of Taurus. And look at this exact square here. 1 degree of Aquarius, Saturn. Saturn at 1 degree of Aquarius. This is suggesting to me that as we are facing more and more restrictions, Saturn representing restrictions, as we are facing these restrictions worldwide, Aquarius representing humanity, some people will resort to hoarding. Now, that's already been happening, all right? We've seen that every time we go out to try to find something for our own selves, is that somebody else has bought too much and they're hoarding. We we may see an uptick in this, and we may see people giving into these feelings of greed or possessiveness. Possessiveness represented by Taurus. Again, that's more of a shadow side, but we're looking at a square here and very difficult times. The question that can come about for us is, do we take only what we need? And this would be a loving sacrifice to others. Or should we keep more for ourselves? It's a very difficult question. When you are looking at a shelf of food and you can see that almost everything is gone, there's only a few things left. Should I buy everything that's left on the shelf? Certainly everybody else did, right? And so maybe I should as well. These are all feelings that perhaps ordinarily we would never even entertain, but that are happening more and more as things are unavailable to us. Let me put it that way. Now, continuing on with this storyline, let's take a look at Mercury, because Mercury is following right behind the sun. Mercury gets involved here. We can see Mercury at 24 degrees of Aries, now squaring Pluto at 24 degrees of Capricorn, and Jupiter is also involved. So we know that Mercury is about analysis and rationalization. Analyzing the discrepancy between what others have and what we want, deserve, or need can become a rationalization process. Well, they have that much, and now look how much I have. So what should I do next? Some will convince themselves that under these circumstances it is okay to be greedy or selfish. And some will even rationalize that it's okay to take advantage of other people. And we have already seen that with all of the price gouging that has been going on. So even if this isn't something that comes into your own mind, like I am going to take advantage of somebody, I'm sure it's not, but there are some people out there that are thinking along these lines and it can impact us. Where perhaps is this impacting you? Take a look at Aries. Take a look at Capricorn. You might find a particular message. Now we are going to move to the 26th of April, and we want to take a look at the sun again. Let's take a look at the sun, and of particular interest is this conjunction right here. Yes, we have some other aspects going on. We can see the computer program is bringing them out to us, but the conjunction really is the king of aspects. And here we have the sun and Uranus conjunct in Taurus at 6 degrees. When we're thinking about the sign of Taurus, we are thinking about the most solid, concrete, material parts of our lives. The cash that we earn, that in turn converts to our houses, and the furnishings within our homes, our cars, the food that we eat. Really, all that we own is represented by Taurus. However, Uranus is an energy of disruption. It breaks up things that are concrete and fixed. It does so in order to allow something even better and more stable to come in. Now, I know it's hard to see that part of the situation at this time, but where is Taurus in your particular natal chart? Because you may see something coming to an end or breaking apart. It could have to do with any area of life because we all, of course, have different charts. Now, I'm going to give you an example of this. The houses of wealth are 2, 6, and 10. I'm not talking about the signs now. I'm not talking about the signs, all right? You could have any sign here in the second house, okay? But if Aries, all right, or, well, particularly, excuse me, if Taurus, if Taurus is in your second, sixth, or 10th house, then you could be looking at something breaking apart that has to do with material needs, work, or career. All right, I'm going to repeat that one more time because I think I could have done a better job. But if you have Taurus, 6 degrees of Taurus, we could say, either in the second, sixth, or 10th house, then this thing that is breaking apart in life in order to bring in something more stable could have to do with material needs, work, or career. Let's take another example. Let us say you have Taurus, 6 degrees of Taurus, in the third house. Now on this Aries wheel we have Gemini, but let's just move it up. Let's say you have Taurus, 6 degrees of Taurus in the third house, the 7th house, or the 11th house. in that case, something that is breaking apart may involve a relationship of some sort, or breaking apart of social life. This could be business or personal, so that would be the 3rd, the 7th, or the 11th. Let's talk about now the 1st, the 5th, and the 9th. All right. So let's take this sign of Taurus, and let's say you have that on the 1st, the 5th, or the 9th as you are looking at your chart. What is changing could have to do with your identity, your inspiration for life, or perhaps your faith. Your identity, your inspiration, your fire, or your faith may be undergoing a difficult change at this time. All right, so those are just examples of how we could move this conjunction around. Let's take a look now at the 4th house, the 8th house, and the 12th house. If you have Taurus on any of those houses, the 4th, the 8th, or the 12th, then it could be something that is breaking apart, is connected to your feelings and emotions, your desires and your yearnings, or something deeply subconscious. All right, so I just did that for just this one aspect. Of course, you can do this for all the aspects as you're going through the reading with your own natal chart, but that is how you can move this around. When we are looking at the Sun conjunct Uranus, we are looking at something that is solid in life or fixed, breaking apart, and we can all really feel that and sense that and see it with the overall economy of the world, but also for some of us in our personal economies. Okay, we are going on now to the final aspect, and actually I want to go to back to February. Actually, let's go back to February 17th. And what we will see is something interesting here, a synchronicity that is enjoyable for us, for people that are interested in astrology and the like. And that is that on February 17th, we had a beautiful sextile between Neptune at 17 degrees and Jupiter at 17 degrees. Now, this sextile is it's loose now in April, but I feel that the message still applies. And let me also say that we will have 2 more exact sextiles between these planets in 2020. And so this is a process that we are going through. This sextile is seeing that despite all the things that are going on, all these difficulties, the fears, the concerns, the restrictions, all of these worries, we have a tremendous opportunity to reach higher levels of consciousness, self-awareness, and spirituality. Yes, it is a difficult time, but some of us will rise above this and we will meet the higher self, we might say. We will rise above the physical concerns, and in the realm of spirit, we will discover a place where we can truly, truly grow. All right, that is your April 2020 reading. I want to thank you so much for being here as always. Again, if you would like to go through this report more slowly and compare it to your own natal chart, apply it to your natal chart, please take a look at the website oldworldmystics.com, and you can read through these aspects and see how perhaps they pertain to you in specific ways. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.